We have a number of units that we need to convert between, and we're going to look at them in categories. The first one we'll look at is time. With time, it's normally quite simple, and we've learned all about it before. If I've got to convert 10 minutes into seconds, we do know that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. And later on, we're going into hours, and we know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. There's no quick way of doing this. Just think logically. If I've got 10 minutes, I go 10 times 60 seconds, and I get 600 seconds. If I'm asked to convert 10 minutes into hours, then things are a little bit different. I say 10 minutes divided by 60 minutes would give me 1/6 of an hour. And if I needed to check that and I wanted to put it into decimals for some reason, I would just punch in 1 divided by 6 on my calculator, and I get 0,167 hours. If I have to convert 30 seconds into minutes, I do exactly the same thing. I take my 30 seconds and I divide it by 60 seconds, because if I then land up with how many minutes I've got altogether, and I have 0,5 minutes. We all know that 30 seconds is half a minute. So it makes perfect sense, and we can just divide through. Think logically about them. Convert 1 hour into seconds. A little bit more interesting. If I've got 1 hour, how many minutes have I got? Well, there's 60 minutes in 1 hour. So that's 60 minutes. 1 minute is 60 seconds. So I take my 60 minutes and I multiply them by 60 seconds, and I land up with 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Here is a little table that we can use just to take a look at the different prefixes. So here we have kilo, like kilometer. We have got milli, as in millimeter, centimeter, decimeter, and we might not have dealt with hecto, deca, and deci before. Deci is 1/10 of a meter. In other words, I can get 10 decimeters into 1 meter, or 1 meter has got 10 decimeters in it. I need 10 meters to make 1 decameter. I need 100 meters to make 1 hectometer, and I need 1,000 meters to make 1 kilometer. I need to divide 1 meter by 10 to get a decimeter. I need to divide 1 meter by 100 to get a centimeter. I need to divide 1 meter by 1,000 to get a millimeter. We can express those using scientific notation. So 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000. 10 to the power of 2 is 10 times 10, 100. 10 to the power of 1 is just 10. 10 to the 0, anything to the power of 0 is 1. To the negative 1 means that it is divide by 10, divide by 100 to negative 2, and divide by 1,000 for 10 to the negative 3. Another way of looking at the conversions for length is I can say, if I'm going from millimeters to centimeters, I divide by 10. So let's say I started with 1,000 millimeters. Divide by 10, that's 100 centimeters. Divide by 10, that's 10 decimeters. Divide by 10, that is 1 meter. 1,000 millimeters divided by 10, 10, 10, 10, in other words, divide by 1,000 would get me to a meter. If I had 1 meter, it would be 10 decimeters. Multiply by 10, 100 centimeters, multiply by 10, 1,000 millimeters. So if I'm asked to convert 20 millimeters into meters, I could either just hop along here. So 20 millimeters into meters, divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10, and divide by 1,000. Once I've divided by 1,000, I get 0,02 meters. There is another method of doing this that I want to show you, because it lands up being a foolproof method for all the different things that you could do. So let's go. I'm going to say I'm trying to go 20 millimeters into meters. I need to think about the unit, and I need to think about the size of 1 millimeter. 1 millimeter is a tiny little space. 1 meter is about the length of a step. So 1 millimeter is small when I compare it to 1 meter, which is big. That means that the number will go from being big to small. Over here, you can see that I used my previous method that I would have used. And I went from a big number of 20 to a small number of 0,02. So when I go from a small unit to a big unit, my number will go from a big number to a small number, which is the exact opposite. The way that I make numbers smaller is by dividing them. So now I consider my millimeter and I say 20 divided by, and when I go from milli to meters, I am going to land up going through 1,000. So I'm going to write divided by 1,000, and I land up with an answer of 0,02 meters. Let's try that with a couple of other ones. We'll use the original system and the longer method. The longer method may seem tiresome, but it is worthwhile in terms of the fact that you always will get it right. So let's try. We've got 234 millimeters into centimeters. Millimeters into centimeters means I divide by 10, so I'm going to land up with, as we should expect, 23,4 centimeters. So that makes sense, no problem. Now let's use this method. 234 millimeters into centimeters. If I look at the unit, 1 millimeter is tiny, 1 centimeter is a little bit bigger. So the unit is small to big, which means that my number, hashtag is an abbreviation for number, will go the other way around. It will go from big to small. How do I do that? I divide. So if I'm going to divide, how much do I divide by? I take 234 and I divide it by, well, we're only going one little hop along here, so we divide it by 10. And my answer comes out to be 23,4 centimeters. Let's look at another example. I'm going from 6 meters into decimeters. Well, meter is approximately a step, and a decimeter is 1/10 of that. So a meter is big when I compare it to a decimeter, which is small. The number will therefore go from small to big. How do I do that? I multiply. So I take 6 and I multiply it by, hopping along here from a meter to a decimeter. Between meters and decimeters I have got 10. So I'm going to multiply by 10 and that will equal 60 decimeters. If I take my next example, I'm going to say 76 centimeters into millimeters. I'm going to take a look at my unit. 1 centimeter is quite big when I compare it to 1 millimeter. So my unit is going from big to small, and therefore my number will go from small to big. How's that going to happen? I will multiply. So I will take 76 and I will multiply. If I'm moving between centimeters and millimeters, I have got a conversion factor of 10. So I go times by 10 and that becomes 760 millimeters.